talk shows on YouTube. I am Trevor, joined by just Matt Myers today. Matt Madrid is out, but we'll be back in time for our next video next week as we preview the big Alabama game that everyone's talking about. But for now, it's just going to be us two holding down fort for tonight or whenever you're watching it. So just to kind of go over what we're going to talk about, we're going to go a little bit into our concluding thoughts of fall camp now that that's over. The season's getting underway, since we haven't had the opportunity to really share our thoughts on that. And then we're going to go into season predictions. Going to look at our Texas Longhorns schedule, break it down game by game, kind of what we're thinking win-loss wise. We're going to then go a little bit into Big 12 conference predictions as well as CFP predictions as well. So should be a fun show, pretty light, but pretty exciting now that the season's getting underway. I know that I'm excited. I know Madrid's excited. I know Myers is excited. So should be a great time. But before we get into it, please like, comment, subscribe, all the usual. Thank you for doing so. We will be a little less on for this season. At least that's what it's going to look to be. We may kind of switch up our formatting in terms of not previewing every game, maybe sticking to the big games or whenever we have availability. We're all pretty busy right now, myself with work. Madrid's got a lot going on too. And then Myers is about to have a big move and start his medical school. But one of those two going up soon. So a lot going on for us. So we'll make it through the season, but it'll be a little on and off. But whenever the big games come, we'll do our best to be there for you guys and make some great videos. Myers, I've talked too long. Hop in. Is it medical school? Is it grad school? What is it?
It's a master's of prosthetics and orthotics. It's in a medical school. It's in the Northwestern. I'm a Northwestern Wildcat. I've actually already started. I'm online right now. It's at Northwestern. I moved to Chicago in December. So that's what I'm doing. I'm working a little bit too. But yeah, man, I'm excited for football season. It's finally here. All offseason, Trevor and I and Matt, we've been chopping it up. Like on paper, this team looks really freaking good. More so than years past, like way more than years past. So now on Saturday, we finally get to see him. And I couldn't be more excited. So yeah, man, it's good to be back. Texas Platinum. And I will say, it probably won't produce as much content this year as usual. But if Texas is really good, that probably means we're going to have more content coming out. So if
Right.
Texas is good, we'll make it happen. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess we can just jump right into fall camp, Trevor.
Let's do it. Yeah. I'll have you lead it off.
Yeah, so fall camp's pretty much over now. It's all in rice prep. I mean, it's a couple days before the game. The number one thing for me, obviously, is the health. I mean, this team, knock on wood, is really under Sarkisian and Torrey Beckton has just found a way to stay healthy, and it's a lot of it's luck. But so far through camp, we're very healthy. Only one guy down, and that's Maurice Blackwell for a couple weeks with a knee problem. So, and that's a guy we need. I mean, linebacker is not our deepest position, and he's a guy that was going to play. So we need to get him back. But aside from that, very healthy. Jalen Catalon staying healthy, which is huge. We need to have him in bubble wrap till Bama, and then let the missile loose against Bama. But yeah, man, healthy team, and some of the transfers are standing out. A.D. Mitchell and Jalen Catalon. Man, A.D. Mitchell, we saw it in the spring game, and then we've seen it in the playoffs over the years. And him and Quinn seem to have a nice connection going, some good chemistry. So it's going to be so fun to watch the receiver core, and A.D. Mitchell might be the best one of them all. We'll see. If I think Xavier Worthy's obviously really good too, but it's exciting to see all these pieces that Quinn has to throw to now, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So, and then last thing I'll say, offensive side of the ball, Trevor brought this one up. DJ Campbell taking over right guard from Cole Hudson, which is kind of crazy to be because Cole Hudson's a guy that in some mock drafts, he's like a first rounder that I saw at least at the end of last year. And he's going to be our sixth man, and he's going to play. He's going to find his way on the field. I do think long-term Jake Majors, I mean, he's got the leadership we talked about this, so he might stay at center all year, but I feel like Cole Hudson might slide into that center position at some point, and just get your best guys out there, your best five, and yeah, so good to see. You're hearing great things about Devon Campbell, and I think that's really huge for our O-line on the interior, because Campbell was a 5-star guy that's just a really mean streak when you watch his film. So very excited to see what he can do, as the season goes on and he just develops even more.
Yeah, especially as a run blocker, because that was kind of his MO, I feel like, as a recruit, and that's like our biggest need right now for the offensive line, is we, especially in the interior, we just don't have, that's like our final piece to solve, final piece of the puzzle in order to have a really great O-line. Is just our run blocking has been really lacking as of late. So if you get that solved, and hopefully with DJ Campbell contributing, that could prove to be pretty big for our offense as a whole.
Yeah, and a couple freshmen obviously are standing out. I mean, a lot of freshmen, not just a couple. I mean, recently Inside Texas has been saying that Cedric Baxter is pushing Jonathan Brooks for the RB1 spot, which is a complete 180 from what we heard in spring and
Yeah.
even earlier in camp. It was Brooks and then everybody else. But Baxter, number one player in the country, obviously always has the talent. It's just going to take him some time to get comfortable with the college game, is really coming on. And I think it's going to be kind of like a 1A, 1B type thing with Brooks, who we love, is, the lead guy. But it's good to have Baxter with all these rave reviews now, because we're going to need multiple good running backs to win the Big 12 and go to the playoffs. So that's exciting to hear. And then obviously other freshmen, Malik Muhammad, seems to make big plays in every scrimmage. Anthony Hill, of course, off the edge, is going to be a godsend. Thank you, A&M, for fumbling that bag. And then there's more, but those are kind of the big three that you hear about. Arch Manning, you hear about him as well, doing really well this spring. Not this spring, this fall, after a shaky spring, because he was just getting his feet wet. But you hear that he's right there with Malik at QB2, going back and forth. So that's a good sign of progress from him, and hopefully we get to see him on Saturday. But Trevor, I want you to elaborate on what our great commissioner of the Big 12, Brett Yormark, had to say about the Longhorns.
Oh, Brett Yormark. So I feel like up to this point, Longhorn fans as a consensus have kind of tipped a cap to Yormark. Like, he's been pretty good as a commissioner. He's really fought hard for the conference and brought a lot of great teams in, stole Colorado from the Pac-12, and he's not done. Like, he keeps, insisting on growing this thing. So, props to him in many regards, but like a bit of a fool, he and I get it. You're at a tech pep rally or whatever that was. You're gonna show your love for Texas Tech, but at the same time, to do it at the expense of another team in your own conference that you're representing. Granted, I know that we're leaving, I know Oklahoma's leaving, but still, that's just that does not look good. I think that could potentially come back to haunt him. I tweeted out a little video after this happened. It didn't get a lot of traction on Twitter. So if you're not following us on Twitter, make sure you do so. And if you are doing so, maybe go take a look, because I thought it was pretty clever. But I think that if Texas uses the words that Yormark said in a proper manner, it could be very beneficial for us, and could be almost a talking point for the country at large, being that I'm hearing a lot of Tech fans kind of say, like, oh, of course Texas is going to bitch and whine about, he said mean things about us. But I mean, you guys would throw a fit as big as possible if it was the opposite side, where he was at a Texas pep rally and was like, hey, make sure you beat those boys from Lubbock. Oh, the internet would explode. So it's very much a matter of perspective and things. But yeah, if we can use these comments wisely, and whenever ref ball starts happening, which is inevitable any season, but especially this season, which I'm sure we're going to get into in some of these games, we now have a bit of an out. And it can be not only something that maybe the coaching staff brings up every now and again, but I think that it'll be a talking point for the national media if some weird stuff starts happening and some silly business happens between Texas and Oklahoma and all the other Big 12 teams. So you might get the media at large with unprompted talking about Yormark's comments and stuff like that. So honestly, what he was trying to do was rile up the Tech fan base, but in retrospect, I think he just hurt everyone else in the Big 12 except Texas and Oklahoma with what he said, and it's just kind of dumbfounding that he did that, because I know that he feels that way. I think everyone knows that he feels that way. Even at Big 12 Media Days, he kind of subtly was like hinting that, yeah, I don't like Texas and Oklahoma, but he said the quiet part out loud and a little bit too loudly. And then, of course, Joey McGuire added on to it too, which again, he's Joey McGuire, he's Texas Tech. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm happy that Tech actually has a coach that, is embracing the culture of what Texas Tech fans are. So nothing wrong with that, but also further bulletin board material for, last game of the season in DKR. And we're going to get into that too, because our perspective on that game has completely changed ever since, all these comments came out. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the comments. Myers, do you have anything to add in regards to that?
No, I just can't wait to beat the crap out of all these Big 12 schools after. And I want Brent Yormark to hand the trophy to Sarkisian.
Oh, he's going to be so salty.
Sarkisian didn't hold back, really. I thought
no.
If I was the head coach of Texas, I'd be like, oh, it's okay. He was just appeasing the crowd. No hard feelings. But Sark has made it pretty clear without being unprofessional that that was messed up. And
he's not coming to Thanksgiving dinner with
us. So I'm hoping that Sark, he's talked about the idea of, being the hunter this year and really going out and embracing the villain role. Yeah. So I'm hoping we see that against, let's say we're playing Texas Tech or, I don't know, just any Big 12 team, OU, Kansas, just run the score up on them and just keep the starters in. I kind of want to see some of that pettiness back at the Big 12, assuming we're good. If we're bad, just no, we're an embarrassment. But
yeah, for sure, that'll be much needed and exciting, especially going into the SEC next season. We gotta get used to being. We are used to being hated, but embracing the villain role, I think, is a more productive manner of dealing with the hate rather than trying to be the good guy that isn't quite good enough to be the good guy. You know what I mean? It's weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird dichotomy. I want to transition into predictions, the schedule.
Let's do it. It's time.
All right. We're going to go game by game. Some of these will be very quick. Some of them will be a little more detailed, but in general, we don't want to keep this video going too long. So Rice, Saturday afternoon, DKR, it'll be a hot one. I don't think either of us will be there. Myers, I have no idea which games you're going to, but
I'll be there.
Oh,
I'll be there
sweating your butt off. Yeah. So all of us obviously have a win for that game. Myers, do you have any thoughts about Rice? It's going to be a good exhibition game, get the gears turning, hopefully, give all of our quarterbacks snaps, all of our players snaps. Should be quick and easy and painless.
I don't have any thoughts on Rice. I just know that UTSA held them to 5 yards rushing last year.
Yeah.
So I hope our D-line dominates their O-line.
Mm-hmm.
I hope JT Daniels has another horrible day in DKR.
Right.
For the 7th
Poor
year.
Guy.
Yeah. The marathon continues.
Yeah.
And I hope that we just look awesome. I hope that it's like when LSU beat, was it Georgia Southern or whoever they played won in 2019. I hope we just look like a machine.
Southern, I think.
Right. I just want us to look like a machine on both sides of the ball that executes. And I want to, send a little message to Alabama that we're about to go into Tuscaloosa and get the victory. So I want us just to look clean and beat the crap out of Rice.
I'm curious how much we're going to hold back in this game and what Sark's approach will be. because there's two very different mentalities. There's the show off, like you said, and then there's the be real conservative but still dominant, win the game easily but don't show off too much. That's something I feel like we saw a lot of out of like Herman's teams for opening games before a big game too. So I don't know what the approach will be. Because Sark really hasn't had an opening game against an easy opponent, right? No. Louisiana, because Louisiana Lafayette was actually decent the year that we played him first year. Who did we open with last year?
Like Louisiana Monroe, they were
Oh,
trash.
okay.
We blew them out.
Never mind. But still, I'm curious he's gonna approach it. Bama, one of the biggest games of the year. Uh let's talk about it. So Madrid is not here, but he did give all his predictions, so we will be reading them to you guys. Madrid is predicting a loss. However, Myers and I both have Texas winning in Tuscaloosa, which is a little bit wild, but I'm sure we're about to drop our reasonings for so. Myers, I'll start with you.
Yeah, mainly just because there's so many questions surrounding Alabama football, questions that we haven't seen in years, since like before Saban. And we were talking about it in the group text. They're really just like redoing their entire offensive mentality. They're going back to the old school football, which no one's doing nowadays. Like it's weird to see a school like Alabama doing that.
Yeah.
I can understand like a school that doesn't get athletes
Right.
to do that. But it's weird to see Alabama, and they don't have confidence in any of their quarterbacks. Nick Saban's begging them to step up and take the job. We know he can run, which is scary, of course. But Ty Simpson hasn't really seized a job either. And I mean, just what we saw last year. I mean, physically, we were very comparable to Alabama. We stood in there with them in the front seven, and there was no out physical against Alabama. I think it was pretty even in that regard, and we're only getting better. I'm sure they'll be better too, even though they lose Bryce Young and Willie Anderson. I'm sure they'll have vast improvement. It's Saban, it's Alabama, it's in Tuscaloosa, but I think we just have we just have a more complete roster, and I love that we're getting them early in the year. I would say because by the end of the year they'll probably be really good.
Yeah,
but I think in week 2 we could sneak in there and ambush them hopefully. But yeah, I put a big W down on this one, so I think Texas will do it.
Yeah, for me, big component is early in the year, like you said. Especially for Alabama not having you said that their quarterback room is not very clear cut with who the starter will be. And Milroe, while he does have a decent number of starts, just yeah. I don't the confidence there is lacking. And also I feel pretty good about our run defense. I know that Alabama is really hyping up their offensive line, the running back room right now, which scares me because that means that they're really good. Alabama's seen greatness in those departments, and they know when it's there, and they're saying that it's there. So I'm worried about it and curious to see how we stack up. But we shut them down last year. Outside of that, Jahmyr Gibbs' big run, we really shut them down in the running game. So I feel like they're going to be a little one-dimensional. I do see this potentially being a bit of a slugfest again, but I'm curious to see how our offense responds with hopefully a healthy Quinn Ewers that'll actually get through the entire game. And this team wants it so bad after what happened last year, and especially after what happened to Quinn. It's one of those feeling games, where it's just like, it's not even a logical thing, but you just kind of have this feeling where it's like, you know what, it's time, it's due. We're due for a big win like this heading into Tuscaloosa at night. I could see it being, like I said, a defensive game, but at the same time, I could see this, kind of harkening back to, Alabama versus A&M. I don't know if you guys saw that Johnny Manziel documentary, but that game very much could kind of be a format that we would follow, being that we'd get on a big early lead, and then all of a sudden Bama would kind of storm back and make it a close game at the end. So that type of game wouldn't shock me either. So something like that. But I don't know. Early in the season, I think is the biggest thing, and I think our team's just a little bit more veteran than they are, and that's saying a lot. So I'm feeling good about it. Madrid is taking a loss, but that's understandable too. Anything else for Bama, or should we move on?
No, but if we do beat Alabama, the media hype train
Oh,
will be in a
it'll be
frenzy.
great. It'll
It'll
be
be so much
great.
fun.
Oh, the best moment ever, I bet.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of, harkening back to when we beat Notre Dame that year, but bigger, I think,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
it's actually there's substance there. People actually feel good about the team, and it's not like, oh, they finally won a game. Yeah. Wyoming next week. All of us have wins.
The Nayor revenge.
I Yeah, that's really the only interesting component about Wyoming. Is Nayer's ties. Anything to add to that game? Is it potentially a trap game? Is it potentially a game where Texas, coming off of Alabama win, would be flexing too hard, and this thing is a little bit scarier than it should be?
I mean, possibly, potentially, but I forgot Wyoming opens with Texas Tech at home. They're hosting Texas Tech. So that'll be interesting. We'll learn more about Wyoming after week 1. But yeah, Texas should win this game, no problem.
Okay. Uh, on to Texas's first road game of the year at Baylor and Waco. Myers and Madrid have us winning. I have us losing. And let me tell you why. Baylor last season did a fantastic job against our offense. They really shut us down. And our passing game could not get going, to the point that Sark abandoned it late in the year, which up to that point he basically refused to do, which honestly was kind of a detriment to him, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But I mean, all of us, I feel like, have tremendous respect for Dave Aranda, especially as a defensive mind. And Baylor does this weird thing where every like couple seasons they get really good, and then they go back to average, and then they go back to bad. It's like a zigzag of like down, up, down, up. And I wonder if they're on an upward trajectory. Their team doesn't suggest it when you look at what they're bringing back and who they have, but that's also when they're the most lethal. I feel like is when no one's expecting them to be good, and then they are. Yeah, they're being a road game. I mean, it very much reminds me of Texas Tech last season, where first Big 12 game out of the gate, we just have a bit of a stinker after, a high of coming off of Bama and other subsequent games. I just kind of see that trend potentially happening. Do I think we can beat Baylor? Absolutely. Like we should, but I don't know. Especially after a Bama win, I see us having a trap game some point early in the season. Waco is kind of a tough place to play. Really, any road game this year in the Big 12 is going to be a hornet's nest, just an absolute shit show. So, and Waco isn't like the most intimidating atmosphere, but I would be lying if I said that it wasn't intimidating at all. It can be. So, time of the day, whenever this game is played, will also be interesting. But I don't know. I have that game circled as a trap game, a game that Texas should win and has no reason to lose, but will slip up just due to great coaching on the other side of the ball, and just not being up for it.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Like I was considering putting the L there, but I don't want to steal your thunder. I agree. That's a very dangerous, scary game. David Ronda is a mad scientist, so
Yeah.
we better be focused.
Yeah. Kansas. Kansas in DKR, which is nice. All of us have us winning. I expect kind of a fun game. That should be a fireworks type of game, offense versus offense. But at the same time, we shut them down last year at home. Granted, Jalen, Jaden Daniels. It's tough.
I know.
Daniels was coming off an injury, so so he wasn't 100%. But I think we all feel pretty confident in that game. Myers, any thoughts on Kansas?
Yeah, man, it's gonna be a fun one. I feel like that's gonna be back and forth, a scary one. I feel like it'll go down to the wire, but I think we'll win it. That duo, Devin Neal and Daniels, is probably the best backfield combo in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we got him when he was coming off an injury last year, so he wasn't fully acclimated. But at his height, like when he was peaking, like early in the year, mid-year last year, he was getting Heisman talk, and
yeah,
I think he could be like have a Lamar Jackson-esque year if things fall the right way. So that could be potentially very scary.
Yeah. I do feel good about our defense against him, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I could see him tearing up other Big 12 defenses, but ours, I don't know. I might be a little, I don't even know the word. Too quick to assume, but I feel good about our defense against him, especially after last season, which again, coming off an injury, but still, I think that translates. So
Yeah.
then we go to Dallas, Red River game. I wish I was going to be there, but I'll actually be out of the country. RIP. But taking on Oklahoma, a lot of the media have Oklahoma rebounding this year. They're like number 2 in odds to win the Big 12. I think a lot of Texas fans and a lot of people that actually watch football are a little surprised by that. All of us have wins, which would be fantastic. That would be the first time since I think 08, 09 that Texas has repeated against Oklahoma, which is sad to say out loud, but Michigan was saying the same thing in a way, but theirs was even longer. So, yeah, I just, I think that we just have clearly the better team all the way around. I just don't feel great about Oklahoma's whole team. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, but I genuinely am not very concerned about their defense. I'm not very concerned about their offense. I know that they return Dylan Gabriel, and he was decent, last year and put up great stats against bad teams, but I'm just not worried. Myers, do you agree?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just not worried. It's weird.
It's so nice having OU suck as bad as they do now. Because for all these years, we used to be like, oh, Lincoln Riley, send
Right.
Heisman, Caleb Williams. It was so stressful. You're just praying that you outscore them somehow, but
Yeah.
it's a heart attack every time. Now we have the better program, way more talent, and I think we might beat them even worse than 49-0 this year. I think
Oh no.
maybe they'll keep it close because if they have Gabriel,
It'll be a
maybe.
closer game. I'm very confident in that, but I still think that we'll win double digits.
Yeah, we're way ahead of them right now, so I think Texas will win, and hopefully, yeah, in convincing fashion.
Yeah. I believe we have a bye after this, right?
Yes, which I kind of like right in the middle of the year.
That's great. Yeah, after Oklahoma, we always argue for a bye, and we're getting one.
Mhm.
Then we're on the road at Houston. Have they determined where they're playing this yet?
It's going to be in their little high school
Oh,
stadium, so
okay.
it's going to be
There we
interesting.
go. So old rivalry restored. Dana Holgerson gets his final shot against Texas. He likes to play Texas, and Houston likes to pretend that there's a rivalry there too. So I don't know. I kind of expect this to be a little scary at the beginning because they're just going to be so amped. And that stadium, despite its smaller size, I think it's still going to be like ready. for Texas. They've been dying to play Texas forever. But Houston is nowhere remotely close to Texas, or much less the rest of the Big 12. So I just think that they're going to have a very average year, kind of a 500 year, and it shouldn't be an issue. Like, especially their defense against our offense. Like, I think, it'll go back and forth maybe for the beginning of the game, but then our defense will settle in and shut them down, and then it'll just be a one-sided game. What do you think, Myers?
It'll definitely be a game that'll test our team's guts, because it's going to be, like you said, strange, kind of scary, because we're playing in a small stadium that we never play in, a stadium that small, and it's going to be full of Houston students and alums that absolutely hate and are like foaming at the mouth the University of Texas, in a place we've never been before. I'm sure it'll be like a night game or something.
Yeah.
And since it's at their home stadium, I think that plays into their hands better, of course, because we're not going to be able to buy up 80% of the tickets like we would in NRG. It's going to be a lot harder for Texas to take over the stadium. So I think it'll be a really strange game. I could see it where like we go down by like 14 points and have to fight back to win it. But yeah, I think we will win it. I mean, hopefully we blow them out, but they do have Donovan Smith at quarterback now, that transfer from Texas Tech, that big dude that we couldn't seem to tackle on fourth down last year. So we know that he can give our defense issues. And the sheer emotion of that game could be problematic. So Texas will win, but I think, this one could be scary.
Circle that game. We return to Austin to play a team that we hope to never play ever again. BYU. Last time they played in Austin, it was my second game as a student, and I think they beat us like 41-7 or something. It was awful. Taysom Hill was Jesus on water again. But Taysom Hill is not walking through that locker room door this time around. Nowhere close. So all of us have us winning against BYU. I'm not too worried about the game. I think they have a decent team, but I also kind of, like Houston, think that they're going to be near the bottom of the barrel of the Big 12. They just don't have – they're not used to playing the level of talent that the Big 12 has, and that's not like a slight at them per se. I'm just being honest. Myers' thoughts on BYU?
Yeah, I'm with you, Trevor. I'm so scared whenever I see that BYU logo, the PTSD comes back. But this year, man, they're not what – I mean, who knows? They could end up surprising. But on paper, we should beat the crap out of them. Give them some payback for the years of pain and suffering they gave us when I was like 12 years old, 10 years old. I remember some of my worst childhood memories was BYU just running wild against the Longhorns. So I hope we beat the crap out of them. I'm excited that we're playing BYU instead of like UCF or Cincinnati. I feel like BYU is a more reputable program than those G5 schools, but glad it's at home. They travel very well, so that'll be interesting.
They do.
But Texas will win big.
Yeah, it'll be good for the students and season ticket holders, because the issue always is like we play these teams, that don't travel super well, I feel like, and it just, I don't know. This will feel like a big game, even though it should be very easy and winnable, because BYU, outside of LSU and Notre Dame, they have, I think, the biggest in all my years of going to DKR, they may have one of the biggest fan bases travel for the game outside of LSU and Notre Dame.
I think I would say BYU whenever
maybe even bigger than Notre Dame, honestly.
Bigger presences in DKR than Notre Dame and LSU, which was shocking. I mean, all the Mormons, though, it makes sense. There's like a global following.
Right. Yeah. So should be fun. Hopefully. Write those demons off and exercise all of that. Back-to-back home games. Kansas State. They are projected to be potentially top finisher in the Big 12. They won it last year. No Deuce Vaughn, but they have a deep running back room. pretty talented team all around. Um, all of us have us winning, which honestly kind of surprises me. I felt like one of us would have a loss against K-State, but I think the fact that we're home and not on the road helps a lot. Myers, let's do a little breakdown of K-State.
Well, K-State's really good on paper, and they return most of their offense, like their O-line, their quarterback. Um, the thing is, they haven't beat Texas since Obama was in office. So we kind of own Kansas State after all those years of them owning us with Bill Snyder, and we're at home. And we saw last year it's a good matchup for us. Like we let them get back in the game late because we were just doing whatever we do in the second halves last year. But I think we'll be able to hold a lead this time, especially because we're at home. But I think they probably are the second best team in the Big 12, and they got some NFL players on that O line and a good experienced quarterback. So it'll not be a give me. That could be a loss. So I need to be ready for that one.
For sure, for sure. So that'll be a big game, probably night game would be my guess. Big 12 contention right there. So it not only is it a big game, but it's I mean, all these are must wins, I guess, but definitely a must win game for fighting for the Big 12, unless they just have a bad season. But I don't anticipate that unless something goes awry for them.
Yeah, Kansas State's one of the few teams, them and Oklahoma State, that'll actually miss playing in the Big 12. All the rest I don't care about that much.
Yeah. So next game that we have is another road game in the Big 12. Texas goes back to back on the road, starting off with at TCU in Fort Worth. This is a game collectively Texas Platinum is worried about. All three of us have losses to the Horned Frogs. I will actually be at this game, at least at the moment. It's looking like it will be. So, and I definitely do not want to see a loss in our final game in Fort Worth, but all of us are pretty worried. Myers, I'm going to hand it off to you. Why do you think we're going to lose?
Man, TCU's just had our number, really, since they joined the conference. And Sonny Dykes has proven to be a good coach, obviously, take them to the Natty last year. They brought in some good transfers. They lost a lot on offense, but they brought in some good transfers, so we'll see how they gel. I think that Colorado game, the Saturday, is going to be really telling and exciting to see. Chandler Moore is supposed to be good. JoJo Earl's there now, but their defense returns a lot, surprisingly. Or not surprisingly, but kind of like sneakily. So their defense wasn't bad last year by any means. I mean, they gave our offense so much trouble. We couldn't do anything. And it's at TCU. I feel like one of these teams is going to get us on the way out and have a dancing on our grave type party. And I think it'll be TCU. And I would love to go out with a win against TCU because I'm so tired of losing to Texas Christian University. But for some reason, I just get that feeling that they're going to do it again somehow.
Yeah, I am also much worried about this game for the same reasons. Yeah, again, kind of like Baylor, primarily their defense. I just really shut us down last year. And yeah, it's a tough environment to play in. They've kind of been our boogeyman ever since I've been following the team. And yeah, it's just tough place to play. So they have a good team a good coaching staff coming off of great season. I don't expect the kind of season that they had last season. Not even close. I don't think they'd be in the championship game or anything like that. Conference championship game. Nothing close. But they do like to get up for Texas. And just road games in general are hard. Bama's one thing, and it will be hard, but our team will be so up for Bama that I'm not concerned about that type of performance issue. But these few road games against like Baylor, Houston, TCU, and Iowa State, Big 12 road games potentially at night. It's Mel's upset. So yeah, and I think we're all feeling the same way about it. But to end that, on a win would be huge. Because TCU has had our number for so long, regardless of coaching staff. It seems like it just it's been a thorn in our side that like BYU, we need to exercise that demon, or not exercise. What's the word?
Yeah, that's right.
Is it exercise?
I think.
Anyway, next game, another road game, Iowa State. I know originally all three of us were worried about that when the schedule was released, but considering the shit show that Iowa State has been going through this offseason, I don't think any of us are overly worried anymore. All of us have wins. They're just not that great of a team. The few remaining talented people that they had last season that, were hangovers from, an earlier good Iowa State team, have now pretty much all left. Recruiting just hasn't been very great at Iowa State. It's weird. It seems like Dan Campbell's kind of, he should have should have struck while the iron was hot and get that premier coaching job. Now he might just be stuck there forever unless he likes that, then great. Myers, what do you think about Iowa State?
I don't know anything about Iowa State. I just know they gave us problems last year, and they were a lousy team last year, and they still should have beat us, honestly, or got close to beating us.
Yeah.
It's in Ames. It's honestly, I feel like you could TCU or Iowa State. I feel like for whatever reason we'll split those. Like it could be Iowa State as our loss. It's just Matt Campbell. I mean, he's always going to have a nicely coached team. The triple high safety is always giving us issues with that he cock runs. And I mean, I expect this to be a really gross, scary, rock fight, cold game. And I think we'll win. But man, I just like these are the games I will not miss when we leave the Big 12. Like at Iowa State, like it's a lose-lose because you win at Iowa State. Oh, you beat Iowa State. But then it's also really hard to win there. So yeah.
Yeah, he was so mad last season. He was just I've never seen him so pissed off. He was just losing his mind. So that concerns me too, thinking back to that. I think time of day for these two road games will be will be a big influence, I think, because Ames at night is that time of the year is just upset alert. TCU, I feel like we never play TCU in the evening, at least not in Fort Worth. To my memory, all the Fort Worth games are during the day. So I'm curious if that would, TCU off of a championship season, if that'd be a night game. I don't really know what TCU's atmosphere is like at a night game. Guess I'm about to see, but anyway.
Yeah.
Last game of the year for the regular season. Texas Tech comes into town. All of us were worried, because Tech is one of those teams that if you don't take them seriously, they're going to beat you. But they're also one of those teams that if you do take them seriously, you're going to beat them very easily. So, and guess what? Your Mark contributed in that and has put Texas Tech on full watch. Not that they weren't already, because they were, a critical loss for us last season. Heading into DKR, Texas Tech fans notoriously known for being loud and cocky and hating Texas. So this is a game that now has been circled in many regards, not only because it's senior day in the last one of the season, and Tech should have a good team this year. But now the trash talk is absurd. And like I said, they're one of those teams that if you plan for them and take them seriously and actually get up for them, that's when you beat them. You lose to them whenever you're like, oh, they're Tech, they're not that great, la-di-da, and then they come in energized as can be because you're Texas and then beat you. So I think all of us are weirdly confident in that game to close out the season. When prior to that, I feel like most of us would have, probably 2/3 of us would have had a loss for this game. But Myers, I see you're very confident in this game in particular.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, for years and years, we've taken the brunt of Fox just giving us that 11 a.m. Black Friday kickoff at home every year post Thanksgiving in like a sleepy, empty stadium where it's like no one's at the game at 11 a.m. on Friday after Thanksgiving. But luckily this year we get it at 6:30. ABC comes in and saves the day. A
Yeah.
night game, which I think will lead to a good atmosphere where it's not going to be a sleepy environment for Texas Tech to go and sneak up on us. Plus all the peripheral, trash talking from every Texas Tech Cactus Twitter you'll find, and Brett Yormark just sounding like a hooligan at their whatever fest that was. I think Texas wins this game by 50 plus, another 70 burger, and I think Sark will keep the starters in the entire game. Send them to the Big 12 and also to the playoff committee that we're here, and Texas Tech will never see y'all again. I don't want to schedule y'all anymore. Y'all are just being clowns. Y'all win one game over us in the last 7 years, and everything goes wild. So Texas big, and bye Texas Tech. It's been a pleasure.
All right. So that rounds out the regular season. We have Myers going 11-1, so pretty big, pretty exciting. Doesn't quite do the undefeated, but understandable. That's like really hard to do. Anytime anyone is predicting undefeated, unless you have like an elite team like a Georgia or a Bama or Michigan, I just don't. Whenever people say that, I'm like, do you really know football? I don't know. I just feel like some people are very wishful thinking, but 11-1, still pretty high. And then Madrid and I have 10-2. I wanted to say 9-3 originally. I really did, but this always happens. Season gets closer, you start drinking the Kool-Aid, and it's just hard to tell until the season begins. Not only what type of team we have, but what the Big 12 is looking like. And I think once we see a few games, we'll actually be able to come to a more realistic prediction of things. But for now, I'll be optimistic. I'll say 10-2, plus just the idea of losing to more than two Big 12 teams before we leave just sickens me. So I just don't want that at all. So I'm not even going to put that bad juju out there. So that leaves us all predicting Texas to go to the Big 12 championship. All of us predicting Texas to win the Big 12 championship. Madrid and I are in agreement that it'd be Texas over Kansas State. Myers has Texas over Oklahoma State, who we do not play this year for weird scheduling reasons. But that would be kind of poetic to end it on a win against Oklahoma State, against Mike Gundy, who has just been a total thorn in our side as well. Myers, go into that prediction.
Yeah, I like Oklahoma State a lot this year. I would recommend betting on their over. I don't know if I can say that, but I'm betting on their over on the season total of wins because their schedule is so soft this year. It's crazy. They get all four newcomers to the Big 12, all four of them.
Weird.
And historically, when teams jump from a G5 to a P5, they do horrible their first couple of years, or first year especially. So I expect them to win all four of those games. They get Oklahoma at home for Bedlam. They'll win that emotional game. Oklahoma sucks, or they're not very good. And then it's a Mike Gundy year. Alan Bowman transfers in there. The marathon continues.
Oh my gosh.
But if he can stay healthy, he's a gunslinger. And Mike Gundy, it's gonna be one of those years where you look up and like Oklahoma State's 7-0 right now. Well, like that's gonna happen, and they'll get in the Big 12 title game, and I think we'll win. But I think they'll be a good team this year. They got Brendan Presley still. I like their front seven, and it's just you got to. Mike Gundy, I feel like is gonna put together a nice little magic year for him, like he usually does every third or fourth year.
Yeah, yeah. And then we both have K-State. Again, they just seem to me to be probably the most outside of Texas, probably the most well-rounded team. in the conference, repeating last year by going. Yeah, they just kind of seem like a team. The Big 12 is so hard to predict because the teams I feel like are always pretty evenly matched. So it's really whoever can catch fire and be consistent. And to me, Kansas State probably is the most foolproof when it comes to consistency outside of what we're hoping Texas will be. Texas Tech, I think, can be really good, but I also think that they can be a little volatile at times. So I don't have them going. And then TCU, I just see them having a bit more of a down year, but still being decent. You know, and then like Oklahoma State, like you said, I can see them being really good, but at the same time, it is a lot of turnovers, a lot of new players. So I don't know. It'll be an interesting race for sure. And I think really any few of these top teams could definitely make it this year. It'll be a matter of kind of like some of these other conferences, like the Pac-12. Teams might cannibalize each other. So Kansas State is kind of who I'm thinking for biggest consistency outside of Texas. So we're hoping.
Yeah. No, I think that they're probably the second best team in the Big 12. I just think the scheduling dynamics where we play Kansas State, Oklahoma State avoids Texas Tech, Texas, TCU, all the Texas schools. So I think K-State is probably, that's a good pick.
Yeah. Cool. Playoff predictions. Let's read off Madrid's first. So Madrid has a very interesting docket. That would be interesting and fun to see because a lot of it'd be kind of there's some fresh blood out on well, not really. Actually, all these teams have been to the playoff. He has LSU at 1, which he's buying the LSU hype, I guess. So that's exciting. I'm not too sure. I feel like they're going to be a good team, but I don't know if I'm thinking they're going to be as good as who they have listed, or at least who Madrid is thinking they're going to be. Georgia at 2, sure. Washington at 3. I think Washington's going to be a great team. I could definitely see them making the playoff, but I'm going to get into why I don't have a Pac-12 team actually going to the playoff. And then Michigan at 4, which, I think all of us have Michigan in the playoff and Georgia in the playoff. So those are 2 staples. Myers, what are your? I just saw you changed it in a document. You had it differently, or maybe you just changed the order.
I did. So, all right, guys, we've been doing Texas Platinum for what, 5 years now? I don't think we've ever predicted Texas to go to the playoff. But this is the year, boys and girls. Like, we've been waiting for this team my whole life, really. 13 years of being tortured. It's time that we flip the script. We're due. We're so due. We've paid our dues. We've suffered. And Sark has built an incredible roster and an incredible culture. He's developed his players. The schedule is tough, but I think it's manageable enough to get through 11-1 and win the Big 12 title. And with that, Texas should be in contention for the playoff. And you know that the CFP, ESPN, Disney, everybody with big pockets would love to see Texas in the playoff because of just the Texas stimulus package. I mean, Texas draws viewers, draws clicks, everything. So Texas in the playoff. I have Georgia at the 1. I think they go 13-0. Michigan at the 2 because I think they win the Big Ten. And, of course, if you win the Big Ten, you're really good. And Texas at 3. And at 4, I have USC. I think that they find a way, even without defense, to get through that Pac-12 schedule 11-1 and then win the Pac-12 title on the back of Caleb Williams and get demolished by Georgia in round 1. But I think they make it. And I think Texas might just win the Natty. Who knows?
There we go. Nice. Mine's pretty similar to yours, a little bit different. I have Georgia at 1, Michigan at 2, pretty much exact same thoughts for me. I did have Bama at 3 and then Texas at 4. Like I said, I do not have a Pac-12 team being represented as deep as that conference is. I'm worried that, well, I'm not worried. I'm looking forward to it actually, but I feel like they're going to cannibalize each other, and there's going to be other teams beating other teams losing to other teams, because Washington, Utah, and USC, I think, are all pretty damn good. And all three could beat all three of each other. So I just anticipate there being too many losses. And the issue is their non-con games are not strong enough to where it's going to really turn heads. What I have Texas making it despite losing 2 games because I have us beating Alabama. And I do think that Alabama's going to have a really good season. So I think that that's going to be what puts Texas over the edge at the end of the day. Is a conference championship win, beating Kansas State twice and beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Puts us over the edge despite having 2 losses. A Pac-12 team that maybe has 1 loss, or even an ACC team like a Florida State or North Carolina that maybe has 1 loss, or even like a Big Ten team like a Penn State that maybe has 2 losses. I don't think that they're going to be that. Bama game is very important when it comes to the playoff picture. And with me predicting them to beat, Alabama, I think that's the Uno card per se, that gets Texas across the line to play Georgia, which is not exciting, but the fact that we'd make it alone would be exciting. But that's my playoff picture, with Bama losing to Texas, but they are in like the top 4 for a reason right now, and a lot of people have Bama in the playoff picture, and it's kind of hard to count out Nick Saban ever. So I think they will be a damn good team and will make it in.
That's a good point, Trevor, that you bring up, that if Texas does beat Bama in week 2, it kind of gives you some runway, assuming that Bama puts it all together and, runs the table and does well in the SEC West and goes to Atlanta. That if Texas were to go 10-2, let's say they lose a close game at TCU and then lose at home to Kansas State in close games, but then they win the conference and are 11-2 conference champions with a win in Tuscaloosa, and Bama's a playoff contender themselves. Yeah, that team could definitely, that could be a 2-loss team that could get in. So yeah, I like that pick, Trevor.
Thank you. And then to end the video, we did this last minute, but why not? Heisman predictions. Madrid says Michael Penix Jr., which I think is a good pick. We saw him last bowl game. Looked very good. He has pretty incredible stats. My only concern is Washington good enough, and are they going to make enough noise to put him in that position? It's one thing to have great stats, it's another to be on a team that makes a lot of noise, and you need both to make the Heisman. So we'll see. I think it's a great pick. I think he's a great player with phenomenal stats. Like I said, just is Washington good enough? And Madrid thinks that they are. I mean, he has them in the playoff at 3. So what about you, Myers?
So I know it never happens, but I have Caleb Williams going back to back. I know he's the odds-on favorite, but typically, like, that guy never wins. But I just think he's the safest bet, of course, because he's great. Like, he's generational, and he's gonna obviously have great stats. And I have USC in the playoff, so I feel like all he has to do is just have a good stat line and then get USC at the playoff. And unless someone else rises up out of nowhere, like a Penix or a Quinn Ewers or someone like that, another playoff contender, maybe a what's his name, McCarthy from Michigan, maybe a guy like that could take it. But it's typically a playoff team's best player, and I think Caleb Williams is good enough to go back to back.
Nice. So I was having a hard time picking a Heisman winner. I was like going through the odds and everything, and Caleb Williams I think is a good bet, but it just hasn't been done in so long back to back that I don't know that, and it'll just kind of honestly I it sounds so homerish, and I feel so weird about saying it, but it seems primed for a Texas player to win the Heisman. It just does. Whether it's Quinn Ewers or who I have down actually is basically whoever ends up being our wide receiver number 1. I see it being another receiver type year. I think that we are really going to put up kind of a historic offense And I think that between Worthy and AD Mitchell, I think either of those two players have the ability to just stand out and be that guy on the field, much like why am I blanking on his name?
Devontae Smith.
Smith, yes. Much like Devontae Smith was in 2020. Especially Worthy, because I think that, again, you look at our team, our depth chart, we don't have the bell cow back like the Bijan that we had in the past few seasons. We have good running backs, but not great. And I think that our best player on our offense is one of those two guys, Worthy or AD Mitchell. So I think that Sark is going to do a great job scheming them up and relying on them, especially Worthy, in situations where maybe he would have relied on a Bijan or a Roshan last season. So I have one of those two winning it all. And if they don't win it all, I get that too, but I see at least one Texas player making New York, which would be so exciting to see. What do you think, Myers? Do you think a Texas player would make New York?
Yeah, for sure. If we're in the playoff, I think Quinn would probably be the guy. But yeah, I mean, Sarkisian is the guy who's done it in the modern era. That's produced a Heisman wide receiver, and that team is kind of like our team, that 2020 Bama team. We don't have the Najee, we don't think, but everything else, we got a bunch of good receivers to surround them with. We got a great tight end, a great O-line, and hopefully a quarterback that can distribute to him. So yeah, that's what Josh paid. He's betting on Worthy with the Heisman. He likes the value there. So yeah. I think you're onto something. And if Worthy is in New York, or anybody is in New York for Texas, it's a good year. So hopefully that happens.
Yes, for sure. Cool. Any other thoughts before we close out this video?
Thank y'all for watching. I'm very excited. I'm giddy. This year feels special. It's going to be a banner year. Texas will win the national championship. Horns go up. I want you to be on the right side of history. Tell your grandkids about the 2023 Texas Longhorns, because it's about to go down. I think this is the year. National championships in Houston. So might buy those tickets a little bit early, because we're going to fill that stadium up.
Oh, man. Well, cool, guys. Thank you, guys. We'll catch you next week. We will for sure do our best to do a Alabama preview. That's one of the biggest games of the year. But like we said, we may be a little on and off. There may be a week or two where we don't have a video. But again, we'll try for those big games, and we'll try for the games that we feel available. Honestly, is the biggest factor here. So be patient with us. We appreciate those that have stuck around all these years, and be on the lookout for videos in the future as they do come. So horns up. Let's go beat Rice. I love that we didn't even talk about Rice. We don't need to, but
that's right.
See you all in the next video.